Hey, welcome to Garry's Shortlist podcast. Today I'm talking with Jeremy Schifeling. Jeremy is all things LinkedIn. If you are thinking, does my profile look good? What do I need to do to improve my chances of being noticed or even hired off LinkedIn? Jeremy's your leading authority. He answers a lot of questions around the do's and don'ts, and also a recent author of a book called Linked that comes out very, very soon. So I hope you enjoy this one. Welcome to Jeremy.
Welcome, Jeremy Schifeling, all the way from San Fran Bay. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Garry?
Really well, mate. It's nice to connect with you again. And I know when we spoke last, we were quite excited to have you join us on Garry's Shortlist podcast. You are the guru of LinkedIn, and I can't wait to introduce you deeper for our listeners here. It's really exciting, your background and more recently the launch of your new book, Linked, and I've ordered my copy, and I can't wait to be doing my afternoon walk listening on Audible to Linked. And on that note, I mean, I guess you wear a lot of hats, right? You work with the Khan Academy, where you're the senior marketing manager at Khan. Your background is in teaching, which I found really interesting because for a lot of reasons, right? In risk management, we find some people from teaching backgrounds make excellent sort of risk management specialists. Your book, essentially, if I've got it right, and I can't wait for Audible to hurry up, is to really crush LinkedIn as a user or as a candidate, perhaps trying to find new work. And get your dream job, whatever that may look like, and really take a little control of your future, and perhaps less the bots taking control of your future on LinkedIn. How does that sound? Does that sound like I've kind of hit the mark, Jeremy?
Yeah, you nailed it, Garry. And just a huge thank you to you for hosting me today, and to your audience for listening in. Cool.
So perhaps give us a little bit of background on where you started, and I am really keen to hear about LinkedIn, what it was like working with LinkedIn. I know you had a very senior role there, so I'm sure our listeners will be really keen to hear it.
Yeah, so just like you said, I actually started as a kindergarten teacher of all things back in Brooklyn, New York. And even though I was teaching 5-year-olds, I always also had a similar passion for technology. I was teaching my kids back in the early aughts to record MP3s or even make PowerPoints. And so I always wanted to find a way to combine those two passions, education and technology. And getting a chance to work on LinkedIn's education team right when it was starting about a decade ago was just the perfect chance to really use technology to open opportunity for not just 25 students in a class, but 25 million around the globe. And that's why I love that role so much.
Wow. And how long were you with LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I was there for about 3 years. And these were 3 years right after LinkedIn had IPO'd, and it was using this tremendous resourcing that it had generated through the public markets to really invest in new products, not just for salespeople or recruiters, traditional audiences for them, but for students and recent grads who are struggling in that sort of post-recession moment to find their footing in the economy. And so we were excited to open that door a little wider.
So how has LinkedIn, I mean, excuse my ignorance, but how has LinkedIn sort of progressed in their learning platforms?
Yeah, so when it comes to learning, LinkedIn has come a long way. At first, it really was a traditional mid-career audience who just wanted the next job, the next rung on the career ladder. But they realized about 10 years ago that they wanted to serve every job seeker, every professional, from start of career all the way to retirement and beyond. And that means continuous learning, right? Whether you're starting out or you want to change careers, you got to keep pushing yourself as new technologies and new skills emerge. And that's why LinkedIn bought lynda.com for a cool $1 billion several years ago to really invest heavily in this idea that they weren't just going to open up opportunities, they were going to train people to get those opportunities with skills on the platform.
Wow. So what are we going to do when Elon buys LinkedIn?
I know, the hot topic du jour. So, to be honest, I think one of LinkedIn's greatest strengths, and people didn't see this for a long, long time, is that because LinkedIn is so boring, it's kind of the opposite of Twitter. It's actually relatively safe from troll farms and spam and all the scandals that have ensnared every other social media platform out there. Instead, even here in 2022, you can have a relatively civil, professional conversation on LinkedIn without having to worry that you're talking to a bot or you're engaging with a Russian spy or something like that. So definitely Its boringness has become an asset in today's environment.
And look, perhaps I should say to some of our listeners that may not even know what LinkedIn is, right? Because I was on LinkedIn. Well, I was a member of LinkedIn for many, many years and never went on. Maybe 10 years. And would I be fair in saying LinkedIn is the Facebook for corporate working people?
Yeah. Basically, Facebook and others have come up with this idea of the social graph, right? They want to map out how you're connected to your friends and your family, and all that's great. Well, LinkedIn is doing the same thing for your professional life. Who do you know? Who do they know? And how can that lead to more opportunities for you?
Yeah, right. So how powerful is LinkedIn? Like, is it like for somebody like myself that's very, very basic tech guy, even though I'm involved in a tech startup at the moment, is it that really, really, really powerful engine there?
Yeah, so two big things. So first of all, it is incredibly powerful because of all the world's career-focused platforms, things like Indeed or Monster or stuff like that. LinkedIn just has numerical superiority. Every company, every recruiter, every job posting, all in one place. So that's great. But the really nice thing is to unlock that potential, you don't need to know how to code or any fancy skills or anything like that. All you have to do is put yourself out there and let the algorithm do the rest. And so I really encourage your listeners, even if it seems boring, even if it seems like another social network, it's worth investing in, even for just an hour, to get access to that opportunity.
Yeah, right. And I think, well, certainly in Australia here, LinkedIn quite often has this real recruiter focus around it, right? It's sort of like I only get sort of spammed by recruiters on LinkedIn, and it's sort of like the recruiter's dating site. However, I must admit, as I started to delve deeper into LinkedIn and learn more and connect with people more, not even with my recruitment hat on, more around social and business networking, I found it really enjoyable. I connected with people that I'd worked with donkeys years ago, and that led to other things. And so, my experience has been really positive. And I've often looked at LinkedIn thinking, how powerful is this beast? And, how powerful is the AI? And where, well, there's my question to you. Where do you see LinkedIn going in perhaps in the next sort of 5 years?
Yeah. So it's already starting to move in that direction that you alluded to in terms of like AI and things like that. Just in the last year, they rolled out a new tool that allows you to prepare for interviews with an AI career coach. So basically, imagine you're getting ready for your big interview with a bank in Sydney. You want to make sure that you really crush it, but you have a little bit of stage fright, especially once that little camera goes on your computer and you're ready to do that Zoom interview. Well, now you can practice your answers ahead of time. And the AI career coach says, hey, Garry, you're speaking a little too fast or a little too slowly. Maybe you could vary your pitch so it's not so monotone. Maybe you're relying on too many verbal crutches like or to pepper your speech. And all of a sudden, you have all the support you need to really rock that interview.
Wow, that's interesting. A robot coaching us on how to get a job.
Yeah.
What were they like to work with? Like culturally, how did you find working at LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I have to tell you, I really enjoyed it. And I worked at a bunch of Silicon Valley firms. So I've been at Apple and Google. I work at Khan Academy today. One of the things that really differentiated LinkedIn from a lot of its big tech giant peers is just that it has kind of a double bottom line, if you will. Yes, it's a public company. Yes, now it's part of Microsoft. But intrinsic in what it's doing is when there is more opportunity in the world, when more people are recruiting and getting jobs, LinkedIn is making more money. And so it's not just about, hey, let's squeeze all the little profit we can get out of, democracy the way some other platforms have. It's actually a win-win where when LinkedIn can generate more opportunity, it also generates more profit for itself. So it's good for everyone. Yeah,
right. So let's take a back step. Let's tell us about non-for-profit Khan Academy.
Yeah, so Khan is very similar. I mean, Khan is definitely a classic NGO in the sense that everything is through philanthropy and donations. But again, it has this idea that through technology and through the smart application of it, we can unlock so much more potential than just saying, hey, let's learn the same way that our grandparents did 100 years ago, right? Maybe there's a better way to get access to education into the hands of our kids.
Right. Tell me more. About the Khan.
Tell me what you're curious about, Garry. Like, I'd love to know more about what you're excited about when it comes to education, or what you're excited about when it comes to career stuff.
Oh, look, Look, I think, ironically, I've got another podcast to do today with a woman in Australia who is very much in the leadership space from the construction industry,
Cool.
and that excites me because the stuff that I've learned about at this point is that she's very focused on learning. Right? It's not about I mean, people have heard me say this a million times that you get into a leadership type role. And sometimes I question that because I say, no, that person got into that leadership role because they were there the longest. It wasn't because they were a good leader. They were in the organization for 15 years and they said, look, we better call Garry, let him join the leadership group or whatever, right? And I really like this woman's approach around, continual learning, right? Even at a 50-year plus age, you've got to be continually learning. And I think you and I spoke only just minutes ago about the brilliance of platforms like Audible, where people that are busy can still read and learn. And then of course in the space of children and kids, I often, I've got two grown kids of my own, then I look at the education experience and go, you know what, I really question the whole process. They finish year 12 and then they apply to go to uni and they can't fill out the university application form. So something perhaps is amiss. And when I had a look at the Khan Academy, I was really interested to see, obviously with your teaching background is very strong and that's what sort of led you through your career. But I was very interested to understand what the Khan Academy really stand for and what their vision is, perhaps.
Yeah, great question. So, if you boil down what Khan Academy is, it's basically saying, let's unlock all this educational content that's been trapped in textbooks or encyclopedias for years and centuries and get it into the hands of every student around the globe.
Gotcha.
So if you're a student in Mumbai or Shanghai or anywhere across the map, you can now go online and learn algebra, calculus, all these advanced skills, even computer coding in terms of skills of the 21st century. And you don't have to pay a cent for it. And before, 100 years ago, you would have to be a rich person in a rich country to have access to that same level of knowledge.
Gotcha. That's cool. I'm liking it. So Jeremy, the certificate of mastery, I saw that there's some courses that you've offered to people, and in LinkedIn mastery. I mean, give it to me. Give me the keys to LinkedIn. Tell me how we do that.
Yeah. So if I was going to advise your listeners in terms of what to focus on with LinkedIn, because again, I know they're busy, it's really three things. I think the first thing is find your North Star. So often if you are in the labor marketplace or looking for a job and you just say, I want any old gig, anything to make some money, that's not going to attract recruiters because they want someone who's focused on a specific area. I can be a marketer or a salesperson or an engineer. And so if you don't know where you belong, reach out to people on LinkedIn who are doing really fascinating work. Maybe they went to the same school as you and learn from their experience. And then get that clear vision of, hey, this is what I want to go after. So that's number one, start with focus. Number two, once you have that focus in mind, don't keep it stuck in your head. Get it into the algorithm, into this machine that generates opportunity at tremendous scale. Because if you build a LinkedIn profile that says, Garry Mansfield, product marketer, Garry Mansfield, sales development leader, whatever your focus area is, you're going to find, as you mentioned, Garry, the recruiters start coming to you. And never before in the history of sort of job seeking has that been true, right? Most times we've had to scratch and claw to have our application seen. Now recruiters are basically banging down your door saying, Garry, check out my company.
Yeah.
And then third and finally, if you say, hey, I have a dream job at X company or in Y industry, I just have to bang down that door, but I'm changing careers or I'm a student, how do I get in? Well, the dirty little secret is that even with all this technology, the one thing that matters most is still relationships. Who do you know and who do they know? And you can build those relationships on LinkedIn by finding someone on the inside. Maybe they volunteer at the same NGO that you do, or they're a friend of one of your friends. And if you can reach out and they can go to bat for you at the company, statistically, that gives you a 10x advantage in getting hired over someone who only applies online. So find your focus, get it out there into the world, and then get that extra edge through relationships. Those are the three key steps to mastery.
They're great stuff. The question for you then, just very basic question for you is, for the listener out there that may be new to LinkedIn and have 10 connections perhaps. How important is it? Is it important to have this, astronomical number of connections, or is it more important that those quality of the connections? Is it, I kind of feel that there's a lot of people there going, yeah, I've just got onto this LinkedIn thing. I don't want to be spammed. I don't want to, sort of brag, I guess, and sort of try and have a billion connections on there. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, such a good question, because again, it can seem really daunting to start from scratch. But there are two huge upsides to having quality and diverse connections on LinkedIn. Not quantity, you don't have to have a million, just the really best people in the industries you're excited about. Let me explain why. So first of all, in terms of recruiters, when a recruiter searches on LinkedIn, again, I want someone with Garry's skills, that is ranked not just based on keywords, what you have on your profile, but by how strongly you're connected to the recruiter. And so the more connections you have in common, the higher up you go on the rankings, and the faster you start to win that LinkedIn lottery where companies come to you with job opportunities. So that's huge.
Right.
And then number two, think about that referral process we just talked about. If you want to reach out to someone who works at Google or American Express or whatever the firm might be, having someone who knows someone on the inside, a friend of a friend, that gives you tremendous entree into those companies to get that 10x advantage. So again, you don't have to have 10,000 connections, but if you have 1,000 or 500 that are really focused on where you want to be, you're going to be golden.
Good. So if somebody, and I'm sure you talk about this in your book, but if somebody is sitting there now, they're on LinkedIn, they have a reasonable sort of profile and a reasonable number of connections that they've perhaps nurtured over a few years. How do they, and they're thinking of moving into a new path. They're thinking, you know what, I'm tired of where I'm working. The culture's crap. My salary's, not where it could be compared to the competitor space. Where do they start? Do they, we know on LinkedIn you can go on and set your profile as, I'm looking for work, right? I'm open to work. Is that a bit naff, or is that a good move? And then the other thing I want to ask you is, how important is that little photo of Garry Mansfield's, melon? Is that the make or break of getting that dream job?
Well, it's a very beautiful melon, so you got to give yourself credit there, Garry. But let me ask you this: have you sort of encountered in the Australian media this idea of the Great Resignation, people leaving firms in droves?
Absolutely. We saw that very brief. In my opinion, we saw that quite fast. And now the recruitment in construction, in particular, where I work, is insane, right? Yeah. We've got construction companies now hiring up to the, medium-sized construction companies hiring, 10 to 20 people a month, and screaming for them, because they've got a lot of infrastructure work and government work that's happening in Australia, and so it's burning quickly. And I would think that there's a lot of candidates out there, or a lot of LinkedIn members out there that are saying, you know what, gee, I'm getting just walloped from everybody on LinkedIn.
Yeah, same exact phenomenon here in the States. And what that means is, if you've been stuck on the sidelines or stuck in a dead-end job, and you're just feeling like, oh my goodness, there's no opportunity, well, guess what? You've lucked out. 2022 is the best year to be a job seeker, probably in the history of careers.
Yeah,
and so
I'd agree.
I wouldn't say, take anything for granted. But again, if you follow the steps that we're talking about in terms of knowing where you belong, doing your homework, signaling that on your profile. So there's your headline, be really clear about what you're looking for. There's your about section, which is kind of a summary where you can give the greatest hits of your career. And you're starting to put all the keywords that you're looking at from job descriptions, where maybe the job is saying you have to have Python skills or A/B testing skills or whatever it is for your industry. You're basically mapping those right back to your profile. So you're nailing what the recruiter cares about. What you're going to find is, because of this Great Resignation environment, recruiters are coming to you en masse, which is exactly what you want. And then as regards the photo question, get this, Garry. Our own research at LinkedIn, when I worked there, suggests that recruiters are 13 times more likely to reach out to you if you have a photo than if you don't. So even if you're worried about your melon, get it up there, because it does matter.
Wow, that's interesting. Just to clarify for the listeners, when we talk about recruiters here, we're also talking about the internal HR machines in some of these organisations. So it's not necessarily the third party, perhaps. It could be the direct employer. So just keep that in mind, listeners, that, you know, the likes of those employers that are sitting in there internally, they're on LinkedIn trying to find the right people for their organisations, very importantly. Jeremy, what was, writing a book? I think I seem to be the only person I know at the moment that's not writing a book or hasn't written a book. So congratulations on that, and I really look forward to reading your book. But what was like the best part of the process? How did you come to writing this book? You know, as a co-author with Omar?
Yeah, well, it's funny to find ourselves in this great resignation environment, because we actually first pitched the book right after COVID started, more than 2 years ago. And as you might recall, there was this kind of mini recession for like a month or two where everything had crashed. And we said, hey, we've got to help job seekers because everything is falling apart. So that was the genesis of it.
Right.
That being said, I'm very happy that the economy has rebounded so much in the meantime. But I've got to tell you, it's a slog, Gary. I can't say I would recommend it to everyone. And I think the only time that you should reasonably write a book is when you've got this story burning in your heart or burning in your mind that's so important that you just have to get it out there. And I think for us, for my co-author and me, we were talking to people every day throughout the pandemic about, hey, you don't have to be stuck. There's a better opportunity out there. We don't want to just reach one job seeker a day. We want to reach 1,000. And this was the best way to do it.
That's fantastic. I love your point that you should have a burning passion. I think my observation is, and as I say, that everywhere I turn, everybody's writing a book. Maybe they know something I don't know, but I still haven't come up with the burning passion to write my own book. And I guess I wouldn't be motivated if I didn't. So that's really cool. Look, I've really appreciated this chat with you today. For the listeners out there today that might want to know a few things, one, where can they get your book?
Yeah, great question. So it is pretty much in all bookstores, online and physical. You can learn more about it at thejobinsiders.com with a bunch of bonus resources, actually, just for listening to Gary's podcast. So you can actually win a free coaching session with us, as well as some other bonus goodies. So check it out at thejobinsiders.com.
Jobinsiders.com. Okay, we can refer there. Jeremy Schifeling, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat with you today. And it's bright and early here in Sydney, Australia. I'm sure it's, I can see the sun, the San Fran sun beaming in your window there. Have a fantastic day. And on behalf of the listeners of Garry's Shortlist podcast, thanks again, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Gary, and good luck to everyone out there.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right, there we go. Gary, that was so fun.
Smashed it. You smashed it, man.
You're so good at it.
No, I'm not. It's when I work with somebody that is a real expert in their field, and I'm not saying that to blow your trumpet. It's when somebody's a subject matter expert, it just can't go wrong, right? So I really appreciate, I genuinely appreciate your time. From here, I pass, actually when you pass me the video, I'll send that off to my editing guy. He'll make it look a bit sexy. He'll post that on LinkedIn. And you know what, there's been, I think I'm about the 12-month mark of doing podcasts. And there's been the odd occasion where I've gone, you know what, should I continue to do this? And then just at that moment, somebody will say to me somewhere, perhaps LinkedIn, hey, I really enjoyed your podcast with Jeremy Schifeling. And I'll go, I've got to continue to do this, you know.
I love that.
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it because of the lack of, or the little preparation that we need to do, right? If it was something that I had to sit up all night, last night to be able to do this, we don't have to do that. If it's authentic and it's fun, it's fun. It's as simple as that. So, Jeremy, it's so cool to talk with you. Your profile genuinely stuck out to me, and I went, you know what? I don't know anybody from LinkedIn that I've seen or come across that I can have this conversation with. It's really interesting. I'm actually, if you've got 1 minute,
of course.
I've actually with a startup that I'm involved with, and I'd love you to check it out. It's called Scratchy.com.
That's right.
Yeah, if you can check that out when you get a chance. But essentially, in a elevator pitch, we've developed an app that rewards good safety performance.
Oh, right? Cool!
And it's rewarding with, it's essentially using positive incentive. It's you will know this from your teaching background that you've got the carrot, and sometimes you need the stick. But in our industry, in most industries, there's no carrot, right? The only carrot is, if you do it again, I might have to sack you. Well, that's actually punitive, right? That's not the carrot. The carrot is, you're getting paid, and just shut up and do your job properly. So we've really flipped it on its head with this process, and it's going great, guys. The reason I pointed out to you is we started working just recently with a firm called Executive Advantage, and they're going to help us essentially try and crush LinkedIn, right?
Oh, cool.
Through
that's where all your clients are, right?
Yeah, absolutely they are, and it's through a sales process through LinkedIn that we're totally oblivious of, and so we started working with those guys just last month, and it's really exciting. And so for me to sort of move my recruitment hat with LinkedIn to a sales hat with LinkedIn, it's been really interesting. We're really excited about it. But watch this space. Scratchy's doing that. We're only 12 months from concept.
Wow.
And we've got some of the largest construction firms in Australia on board already.
Whoa.
And it's going. I think the recruitment thing will be shelved at some point, because it's I just can't sort of be a director of both companies at the moment. But it was ironic that I sort of came across your profile, and at the same time I'm learning about LinkedIn and the sales sort of the sales end of LinkedIn, how clever it can be. Very clever.
Well, I have to say, I love your website. It's so like cleanly designed, and I feel like the typography and everything is like very, very modern.
Thank you.
It's so funny. I didn't even think it was like in the safety and like mining industry at first, because it looked too good for that. Like my mental model was like, no, it'd probably be more old school and that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's my co-founder of Scratchy and myself, we're construction guys. That's our background. However, very quickly we're bumping into people from mining and airlines and transport and logistics and others that are going, you know what, this can work in our organization. We're like, cool. We know, we're just trying to go really slow. But so anyway,
I love it. And you're going to find, speaking of mining, there's plenty of gold to be found in LinkedIn. So definitely continue to mine that.
There's a good quote for the day. I'll take that on board. And perhaps one day, Jeremy, my co-founder James, he's in San Fran quite a lot.
Oh, cool.
And I was telling him recently, I said, I was interviewing you, and I thought it was really interesting that I found someone so cool on LinkedIn, that's a LinkedIn expert. And he said, oh, where is he? And I said, let me have a look. And I went, he's in the San Fran Bay. And he said, well, I'm in the San Fran Bay every couple of months. So if we at some point need some advice or some consulting on LinkedIn, I'd hope to think that a coffee could get you guys together, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. I love this. Yeah. Well, keep me posted, because I love to see anything that's entrepreneurial, anything that's focused on LinkedIn. Those are my two passions. So right. Please keep me posted.
Oh, sweet. Well, look, thank you once again, Jeremy. I really appreciate it, and I do appreciate your understanding me going down bad.
No, I'm glad it was just the man flu and not the alternative.
Well, thanks so much. When you get a chance, if you can send me the video, what I will do is I'll let you know just as the guys are going to post it in the next week or two, and that way you can keep your eye out for it. Essentially,
and I'll definitely share it with my followers as well. So hopefully we can get a lot of folks to subscribe. Yeah.
Wonderful. I really look forward to listening to your book, and congratulations on that. That must be a really big milestone for you. And keep in touch, man.
Great. Thank you so much, Garry.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jeremy.